Did you know there are over 1 billion overweight adults in the world? And that number is growing by the minute? That's why here at 300 pounds and counting, we're talking about real, raw weight loss and taking our life back. What's up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into tonight's video. As you can see, I'm in our game room, and you can see my favorite team behind me right here, the Baltimore Ravens. My wife, her favorite team is the Eagles. Isn't this such a cool picture, guys? One of our friends actually made that for us last Christmas and gave it to us as like a wedding gift. So anyway, we're excited about that, but we have an exciting video tonight. An exciting video. I'm coming at you tonight with a recipe for homemade barbecue sauce. Now, when you think of barbecue sauce, you probably think of hickory smoked or bourbon or honey or teriyaki or different kind of sauces like that, right? Well, get this. Have you ever heard of a barbecue sauce made with celery? If you keep watching in just a few seconds, you'll see the recipe right here about homemade barbecue sauce made with celery, onions, tomatoes, and a lot more. Stay tuned. Also, guys, our last video had 13 subscribers. We now have 13 subscribers right here to this channel. You have friends or family that should see this, go ahead and let them know about this channel too. But our last video got 78 views. 78. That's amazing for a first video. So I'm excited. Also, I have a secret that is going to be coming, hopefully, within the next few weeks. A secret interview. I'll give you a hint. This person was on a TV show about losing weight. If you guessed The Biggest Loser, you're right. We're going to talk to, hopefully, a few contestants from the Biggest Loser that I was able to connect with on Instagram. Can't wait for that to happen, but without any other further ado, we're going to get ready and get right into this recipe in 3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? So I'm back here, and this is the beginning of the recipe video. So as you can see, we have 2 onions here, and basically the way I do it, I try to pull off the skin a little bit before, and it doesn't really work out for me as much. So another trick I do, you'll see here in just a few seconds, is I take and I cut the onion in half and then remove the skin, and then there's a weird like layer that goes along with the skin that I take off too. It's kind of like a brownish layer. I take both of those off, and then I proceed to cut and dice the onion here. And for the sake of time, we won't show the cutting up of the other onion. So here, I just go ahead and put the onions in the pot. And now I'm about to add a couple teaspoons of garlic here. The recipe calls for 3 to 4 cloves of garlic that are diced. However, I had some in a jar that I need to use, so I used that. And the ratio for that is for every medium clove of garlic, it's a teaspoon. So instead, I used about 3 or 4 teaspoons here in this recipe. So now I'm getting ready to add in 4 tablespoons of olive oil. I failed to mention a few minutes ago that this recipe has been doubled. If you'd like to see the single version of this recipe, I'll link it in the description. So after I added all the oil here, I turned the pot to a medium-high heat. I washed some celery, I cut off the ends of it, then I diced it up and added it to our pot. So after adding the celery to the pot, I stirred it up a little bit, let it simmer. Then I chopped up about 2 or 3 Roma tomatoes. It's basically just how many you like on that one. Then I added about 3 tablespoons of stone ground mustard here and added it to the pot, stirred it up, and let that sit for just a couple minutes. After I got done with the mustard, I used the same tablespoon to add some liquid aminos here, and they really are good. They really do taste like soy sauce. It's a great alternative. It's less salt, and it's pretty healthy for you. It has a lot of good things in it. Now, the recipe calls for about a 1/3 cup of these coconut aminos. However, I didn't have them. I didn't have a 1/3 cup, so I ended up using tablespoons, and it came out to roughly about 5 or 6 tablespoons of these aminos. So after I got done with the aminos, I stirred it up, and then I added this bottle of sugar-free ketchup. Now, the recipe calls for tomato paste, but unfortunately, I didn't have tomato paste at this time. So it calls for about a 1/2 cup of tomato paste, but I used the whole bottle of ketchup instead, which that was roughly about 1/2 cup of tomato paste. After that, I mixed it all up, and then I salt and pepper it to taste. I didn't really measure out the salt or pepper, and I don't really have an exact measurement for it, but I used fresh ground pepper and a little bit of Himalayan sea salt. It wasn't the pink Himalayan sea salt, but it was like a white alternative, and just used a little bit of that, and it was basically just to taste. So if you like how it tastes, you don't have to add salt and pepper, but I did. Now, I just added a couple other spices. I added some paprika, some basil, and then some red pepper flakes. I added that just to taste. There is some specific amounts on the recipe, but I didn't actually follow the recipe in this aspect. I just did it to taste. So then I just used a hand blender to go ahead and make sure that all those big pieces of celery, onion, tomato, all those things are chopped up finely so that they're not big chunks into this sauce. Guys, this sauce tasted so good. You would not believe it. It's so good. It doesn't look like a typical barbecue sauce would look, but it's so good and so good for you. So after I made sure everything was all finely chopped and finely done, it should be about this consistency. There is obviously a few bigger pieces, but it's still really good and really tasty. So we're getting ready to go ahead. After I finish this, we're going to get ready to go ahead and pour it over some ribs. Look at those ribs, guys. So now I just pour it over these ribs in the crock pot, just let it sit there, and that will be my lunch tomorrow. Now the important thing here is to make sure all your ribs are covered. That's what I'm doing here, just making sure everything's covered. And then after that, we'll get ready to turn this crock pot on and get these bad boys cooking. Now we just go ahead and put the lid on this crock pot, turn the crock pot on low, and leave it there for about 8 hours. And look at that, guys. Look at those ribs. Oh my goodness, they were so good. I wish you could smell the smells in that kitchen. Be jealous. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. That's the end of the video. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on Instagram. The handle's up top there.